How's it going, everybody? Today I wanted to show you how to fix one of the eyelets on your rod anyways. Today I will show you exactly how I replace that eyelet right there. This is a DIY way to do it. I'm going to be using some epoxy, basically a knife to scrape off the excess glue, and some braided fishing line essentially to secure all this on to the rod itself. It is a DIY way, but this way works. It's worked for me on a couple other rods, and it has lasted a couple years now, really. I mean, it's a solid DIY way to fix your rod on the fly if you need be. All right, let's get into it. What you will need for this video is first some epoxy, some string, or some lightweight braid. Here I'm using 8-pound test braid, a knife, something to scrape off the excess glue, and the new eyelet that you plan on putting back on your rod, as well as something to hold a container of some sort and a brush or something to stir the epoxy as well and apply it to the rod. Now you see I've got the broken eyelet on my rod here, and I am going to gently scrape away the original epoxy so that I can have a nice clean finished surface. And you'll take off all those threads and everything as well. Just basically make it so it is a blank slate so that you can put the new eyelet on. Okay, there's the chunk of epoxy that just came off. Now I'm just going to scrape away the little excess that's left on the rod. And I'm not scraping, you don't want to scrape too much off, because if you scrape too much off, then you start damaging the rod. So be very gentle with it. Here I'm going to get out a section of braid just to tie that eyelet on. The braid is more of a reassurance than anything. We'll get into that here soon. I do like to super glue the eyelet on first. Just makes it easier. Then you can kind of hold it in place, make sure it's lined up correctly, and then you don't have to worry about it slipping or anything like that, getting out of alignment from the other eyelets. You definitely want to make sure it's lined up with the other eyelets. That's the whole point of replacing the piece. Now here I've got the line. You just need to tie it onto the rod somehow. I'm using an arbor knot, but I'm cinching that down there. Doesn't matter exactly how you tie it. But then from here, once I got it snug, I'll start to wrap it around the eyelet, that new eyelet. This is just gives it some backbone, essentially. Just makes it a little bit stronger for putting that new eyelet on the rod. You know how the professionals do it is they do wrap the eyelets in threads anyways and then epoxy over them. So they're pretty much just trying to copy that. Once I'm done wrapping it, I'll super glue that so it doesn't go anywhere. And then from here, it's just getting your epoxy out, putting it in your container, and then I'll mix it and apply it to the rod anyways to get that new eyelet secured on there. Now you don't need a lot of epoxy, just enough, and even that right there is more than I need. I'm going to mix it really well so that the two-part epoxy can cure correctly anyways, so it's got the right mixture. And here I just start spreading it over the eyelet, trying to make it even, but it doesn't have to be perfect. This is a DIY project, so it's not going to be perfect like a professional would do it with the right and correct rod making tools to actually do this professionally, but this works. You just want to try and make it as even as possible. Now here I'm putting a second coat of epoxy on. It hasn't fully cured yet. It's just barely starting. So I'm just basically adding more epoxy to it because I feel like I needed just a little bit more. Probably could have got away with just that first drop essentially, but we added a little bit more. From here, I just start spinning the rod manually until the epoxy cures. That'll make the epoxy even. And then once that's done curing, you have a finished product. And you have a brand new eyelet in working order that is good to go fishing with. Now, that epoxy, that a 5-minute epoxy, you do got to sit there and spin it for a minute. It does seem tedious, but it gives you a little bit more working time so that you have a minute to actually make sure the coating is even. They make a 1 minute epoxy in the same tubes, anyways, the same just squeeze tubes like there that you can get at really any like hardware store, Walmart, Home Depot, part store, or something like that. But the 1 minute epoxy, it cures really fast and it's hard to work with, especially if you don't get the right amount of epoxy on there. It makes it a little inconvenient essentially. But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a super DIY way to fix your rod on the fly. Definitely not a professional way, but I have some other rods that I've done this with in a pinch essentially, and they've held up for a couple years now, and they're still have those eyelets on those rods. So it's a decent way that gets you back in working order for whatever rod you have an eyelet break off on. All right, well, that's how you do it. Super simple DIY way to fix your rod if you have an eyelet break off. Um, Something that you can do on the fly almost anywhere that you are at. I've done it, like I said, on a couple rods, and it's held up pretty well. So if you like content like this, subscribe to the channel, like to the video, and we'll see you on the next one.